Hi, welcome to valuationpodcast.com, a podcast and video series about all things related to business and valuation. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I provide online valuation services for mediation and litigation based in St. Louis, Missouri. Today, we're actually going to discuss a buyer's perspective and risk factors in business valuations with Al Danto. He has over 30 years of experience with startup companies, entrepreneurial companies, as well as expertise in the acquisition, valuation, and divestiture of business interests. He has served as a representative for a multitude of engagements. He has experience working with lenders, private equity groups, and individual purchasers or buyers. And he served on a variety of boards, including the alumni board of the Graduate School of Business at Rice University. He is also a full-time professor at Rice University, and he's a member of the NACVA, which I am also a member of. So welcome, Al. So I want you to first kind of tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in this profession.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that introduction as well. It really spans now, it's almost 40 years, 37 years. So I was fortunate enough, I started my own business in an apartment when I was 23, and we distributed envelopes and printing and business forms. I had the good fortune, a friend of mine's company closed down. He had clients, and we just started to broker products that his customers needed, and we were able to actually hire two other sales reps from the company, and we were printing brokers. We brokered envelopes, we brokered business forms, we brokered printing. And we did that. I was working at the NCR Corporation at the time, and we were installing some of the first computers. I'll date myself. It was back in the early 80s. So we were installing computer systems into small, medium-sized companies. And I left that job, and we got a warehouse and stayed a distributor. And then when I was 27 or 28 years old, we had the opportunity to buy out one of our manufacturing companies. We had become actually one of their biggest distributors, and there were a couple guys, Guy and Howard Stewart, and they were in their late 60s, maybe early 70s at the time, and they approached us to buy the company. And really, I was scared to death, just absolutely scared to death. Coming in there, had no idea what we were going to do. We went to the bank, and the bank said, "I will we'll lend you the money for this acquisition. We trust that you know what you're doing." And they asked me for something called a personal guarantee. I said, "Oh man, what's the personal guarantee?" That means that we'll give you the money, and if you're going to have to pay it back, or we're going to start taking whatever you have, and you're going to pay that back at one time. So really, my perspective and this perspective of today's interview, these risk factors, you can look at them on paper when you're doing an evaluation, but when your money on the line and your investors' money on the line and everything, you look at it completely different. That was probably the best. I went on to do about 12 to 15 acquisitions in the printing business, and we ended up having a national footprint. And but that very first acquisition, because of the fear that I had, I probably did the best job. I looked at every possible. I didn't know a thing about valuation. I didn't know a thing about discount rates, but I knew I better uncover every risk that was in this company, because I was on the line, right? And so we did that and started looking at everything. What happens if the owner leaves? What happens if the customer leaves? What happens if the employees leave? What happens with all this stuff? And we went through, and I know that two owners were probably so sick of me going in there and just asking them all these cool, what about this? What about this? And we went through with it. And that really set the precedent to go forward. And as I learned, I eventually went on and got my MBA, became a certified valuationist. But really, that heart and soul, that's what you're doing when you look at a business valuation. Is what's the cash flow, but really, what are these risks? Mm-hmm. And as we remove and get comfortable with risk, we're really increasing valuation at the end of the day. So that's what we did. So I went on to acquire a number of companies. We expanded through national sales, through catalogs. And then I had the opportunity to sell the company to a private equity group. And along the way, I had the good fortune to be in the entrepreneurs organization and share some keys and successes to buying and selling a company. And Russell Vail, the president of the organization, and I were out one day, actually at a hockey game. And he had sold his company. I said, what can I do to sell my company and get the maximum value? He says, you have to get recurring revenue and get yourself out of the business and eliminate all these risks that I was worried about when I bought the company. So we literally went on this mission to try to find recurring revenue in the printing business. So we did magazines and newsletters and contracts and all this stuff. And we ultimately sold the company to a private equity group. We received this incredibly relative high valuation because we had removed a lot of the risk. Mm-hmm. So I was able to sell the company. I went back along the way and got my MBA at Rice. And when I was there, we had a good fortune to be involved in a startup company. And Rice asked me to come back and tell the story about the company. I started teaching classes there. And now I teach full time. I teach all the classes on buying and selling a small business valuation, as well as a lot of our startup companies. Rice was recently named the #1 graduate school MBA program in the country, so I'm proud of that. And then I started to consult. People started reaching out to me to help them to 90% to sell their business and get ready and prepared. And I also got my valuation certificate. So that's what I do. I teach at Rice in the program, and I have a small company. We do some M&A advisory work, and it's called Exit Advisors. And we'll get into that a little bit later.